Food,
gambling,
drugs,
internet,
love.
spending.
There are a million addictions, and everybody is recovering from something. Here to help, it's Recovery Wednesday with America's original radio psychic, Dr. Linda Salvin, along with addiction specialist Candy Finnegan from the Emmy Award-winning television show Intervention. Candy and Dr. Linda are two gals who know recovery because they are in recovery. Listen as they help you bring your recovery to the next level, help you solve your thorniest issues in ways you may have never imagined. Together, they bring you the tools and techniques that bring balance, serenity, and recovery to your life, and the tools you need to find solutions for healing from the disease of addiction. Candy teams up with Dr. Linda to share their over 60 years of combined experience dealing with all areas of recovery. In her decades as a metaphysical clinician, Dr. Linda has helped thousands of people worldwide solve problems on the air and in person with her insights and solutions. So pull up a chair, turn it up, and get ready for a visit on the path to recovery with the one and only Dr. Linda. And now, live from Los Angeles, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Linda Salvin and Candy Finnegan.
Well, that's no fun. I thought I was going to have the whole show to me.
You can do it. I'll sign off right now. You're more than welcome to have it.
No, I was being funny.
How you doing? Hi, everybody. This is Dr. Linda Salvin, and I am a PhD in epidemiology and metaphysics and whatever. I am a metaphysician. That's Candy Finnegan, and she's one of the most well-known interventionists in the country, does a lot of drug abuse assistance and substance abuse and family intervention. So we're here for the next hour, 50 minutes. We're going to be talking about one day at a time. What does that slogan mean in the 12-step program and in your life? So one day at a time, I've been doing one day at a time for about 40-something years. I'm still waiting. Every day I'm waiting for some magic to happen. But usually what it means is one day at a time, dealing with your emotional state, your physical state, your spiritual state. And don't drink and use or abuse over it, and you will get through whatever the it is. And right now we are in a it, which is the Mercury retrograde. So there's reasons to feel kind of crummy and off balance, and technical difficulties or communication issues are rampant. How's your world going, Candy Finnegan?
Well, interesting. I'll tell you later about a phone call that I got at 12:15 last night.
Somebody we know?
No.
Oh.
No, we don't. And I'm not sure that we aren't grateful.
Okay.
So, yeah, one day at a time. You know, I never lived one day at a time until I got in, sobriety. I finally figured out it meant being in the present, because when you first get sober, it may be, if you're lucky, it might be 1 second at a time, but the great thing about it is if all of us do one day at a time, we're all on the same page at the same time. So, which I think is important when you and I have so many years and, but we see somebody who's got 11 days, we both just have today.
That's true. That's true.
It keeps us all grounded, I think. I hated it when I first got sober because I thought I wrote all my Christmas cards. That isn't exactly it isn't what they meant, but there are times, and we talk about it all the time. I'm so down, in August, or it's difficult sometimes for me not to think, how could, just to be present in today. And what did Eleanor Roosevelt say yesterday is history, tomorrow's a mystery, and today is the present. Yeah. So, because it's easy for me to jump ahead to something I have no control of that I'm worrying about that, I better wait till it happens instead of waiting until it happens. I project what's going to happen. And I think you and I both do that way too much, but
yeah, we overthink things or analyze. Although I did have a scare the other night and Candy was there for me. We went out to dinner and my phone wasn't downloading my Facebook properly. And then when I got home and turned on my laptop, all of my Facebook content was gone. And I called Candy immediately. I said, go to my page. And everything from 2007 till now was gone. I mean, we all keep like little diaries on our pages of our family members or trips, pets, whatever. I don't get into the political jargon there, but it was gone. And I panicked like I had been hacked, because a lot of weird things have been happening to my computer lately. And I have a Google tracker that shows over 25 attempts from Russia, Iran, Iraq, the United States, Korea. They're trying to hack my account. You can see on this one page off of Google who tries to get in. I thought, oh God,
Interfere, right?
Yeah, they finally broke in. And then two of my friends popped up and said, can you see my screen? All our content's gone. And then another friend popped up. So it was something internal within Facebook, or a bunch of us got nabbed, and then Facebook finally fixed it. We don't know what happened, but within an hour, everything came back. But that's part of the retrograde stuff. That's also part of my thinking, oh my God, I've been hacked, when really it could have just been a technical glitch. But no, I go all the way. Oh, if I have a lump, do I have cancer? Am I going to die? No, maybe I just have a cyst. You know, the brain takes something like this and goes like that. Our one day at a time is, let's just see what happens today. Don't try to foresee what's going to be the diagnosis.
Don't jump ahead. It's not going to do us one bit of
Well,
good.
in a way it does, because I work as a psychic and people want to know what's going to come or how to bypass some of the pitfalls or what to expect. So I can give them headlight moments where I'm like a flashlight on the path. Well, this will happen. You might be offered this. Don't take this. You're going to want that. But in that situation, it's not the same as in sobriety. Sobriety keeps you in the moment. And yes, I have the gift. If you'd like to call in, the number is 561-623-9421. By the way, if anybody wants to call in while we're live doing the show every Wednesday, Recovery Wednesday. Yeah, the brain, we can go into grandiosity, we could go into depression, we could go into shrinking, we could go into ideation, we could go into especially bartering, no, I'll do this if I get that. But it's real hard just to be human and just get out there. Everybody has feelings and emotions and traumas and details. But when you're out in public, most of the time, you just see the body. You don't hear or see the experience of how they got there. You don't know what I was like at 14, where here I'm 70. You don't know what I've done all these years. It looks like I just kind of go with the flow. I do not. I've learned to, but we all have a tumbleweed experience. Nothing just is handed to you on a plate, not that I know of. And pain.
A while ago, I wrote this down. It says, you never know where life is going to take you. So everything I do, I just take it one day at a time, and it always leads you to the right place. And, there's a lot of things I can do one day at a time, and there's a lot of things I can't. Especially during an intervention, I certainly have to think ahead. I can't just, worry about that day.
I think that's where you got to draw the line, though. Yeah, I think staying one day at a time is like, you're not looking 5 years in the future. No, who am I going to marry and where am I going to get, and I'm going to lose weight, or how am I going to pay the bills? But when you're planning work, a wedding, your son's concerts, when he's planning a tour, you got to plan. I mean, that's all part of life. I don't think that's, one day at a time, he plans concerts. One day at a time, you're planning interventions. One day at a time, you can't do the intervention, do the laundry, feed the cat, take the cat to the vet, go get the gas filled up. I mean, you can't just do everything. And some things have to be the next one day at a time.
Oh, absolutely. But I think I got my sobriety one day at a time.
That's what they're talking about. Don't drink or use one day at a time, and life will start.
No matter what.
Yep.
And I can do that.
That's basic, keeping it simple.
Yeah. Well, what the hell's simple?
Well, it's easier and simpler than what it was prior to learning what one day at a time means. So one day at a time, when you get into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, it can be very overwhelming. Or if you're on a Zoom call these days, because since lockdown, we now have Zoom meetings. And you can go to a meeting anywhere in the world. You're not limited to your own town. You don't have to worry about running into somebody. I ran into people from high school. I thought, oh my God, they're going to know. Well, I know about them too. You don't show up if you don't have an issue. But when you finally get out of the fear of judgment, like everybody's staring at you and what are they thinking? They're thinking about themselves, or they're judging how pretty your top looks or your hair is nice or whatever. Or, oh, there's a newcomer, maybe I'll say hello. You just listen for the message. You listen. And something after a while of going to different meetings will click. And you're going to want more, or you're going to get peace, or you're going to get some
Serenity.
or an answer to a question that's been bothering you. Something will kick in the more you show up. Because like with me, if I stay in my head too long, it's doomsday sometimes. And other times I can't wait to get out because it's so gorgeous out. I got to go see all the flowers and the bumblebees and the trees and the flower. I was watching the birds and the bees literally yesterday outside my office window, and that spring is here. And all the bees are buzzing around and they're collecting nectar, and then the birds are hopping. And I thought,
I actually have a bird building a nest.
Oh, where?
Of my 10,000 birdhouses for the first time.
In one of the birdhouses actually using it? Oh, that's wonderful.
And they go in and out. And
I love that.
And well, it's a little cramped.
But they don't care. But that's fine. But they're bringing in twigs and little leaves and making a nest.
When I first looked out, I thought, why is that birdhouse swinging? Because it was going, all the rest of them were still. And I thought, because that usually means like an earthquake,
Right.
So I kept watching it, and all of a sudden there was this little head popped out. And I'd like to, I'm not tall enough to look in, so I'd have to get a ladder. But I thought, no, you don't need to look in their window, Candy. Let them be. See if they're doing it right,
I think that's great. I remember when I had the house around the block from you up in the carport in the corner.
Oh, yeah, in the corner by the drain. I remember.
Would always make a nest every year. And then when the eggs were laid and then the babies hatched, they flew away and they left the nest. But I remember that would be like an annual spot.
Yeah,
I remember that. That's fun to watch. So when we get out, just watching the bees, and I'm the type that if I find a bee that's dead on the driveway, I pick it up and I say, I'm sorry, and I put it in the bush so it goes back to the earth, because it bothers me. Anything that's alive that dies, it has its moments, but I get torn up a day at a time watching all the animal tragedy.
Well, my very favorite thing is watching hummingbirds. I used to have a tree by my French doors, and every year it was a Chippewa tree, so it was real branchy. And every year hummingbirds would build their nests there. My God, that was so much fun.
And they flitter. And the hummingbirds in metaphysics represent sweetness in life because they're always about sweetness, and they bring sweetness to your life.
But they're little,
and they just
tiny little nests, and they're beautifully woven.
And
they do hair, and I mean, it was like really solid, and twigs and little pieces of grass, and then those little teeny weeny blue eggs, and then those itty bitty tiny little squish 3 little birds, and I don't know how, the bigger they get, they almost butt each other out,
and then fly away.
One day they're gone. Yep,
that's the magic of nature.
Birds, but I don't have any nests.
Out of all your bird houses, which one did they choose? I'll have to come over and look. I don't even.
It's by the door that goes from where the piano is to outside, and they're little tiny white ones that hang on either side. They're nothing spectacular. They're not like a condo. They're a little teeny, and it has a little at Christmas time. It has a little wreath on the door. But it's very small. But these are tiny little birds, so.
Whatever it was drawn to it out of all of the expensive condos that they could have chosen. It chose that. It wanted simplicity. It wanted simplicity.
And I liked it because it's right near where I sit, so I can watch it all the time.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, birds. I was fascinated with birds for years. I had parakeets. I had a Myers parrot.
Yes, you were fascinated with birds.
And I had my lovebirds. I couldn't bring them to this house, but when my rainbow died, that was sad. I still think about Rainbow. There's a story with this rainbow 15 years ago. My mom died, and just the week before, my friend who came knocking on the door and said, "There's a bird on the wall for you." I said, "What bird?" So I went over. I said, "Oh, it's a lovebird." Well, they captured the bird, named it Rainbow. The next day it was squatting so much they didn't like the noise, so she gave me the bird, and I inherited Rainbow. And then I went to my mom 2 days later. I said, I got a new bird, and she said, what's its name? I said, Rainbow. She said, Rainbow. I said, yeah, why? She said, that's the code name for the alarm system on the house. And I said, Rainbow. And she died the next day. But I had that bird 7.5 years. So kind of.
I'm very aware of all of your birds for 25 years.
I loved those birds. They're messy, but the beautiful thing about birds, just like in the morning when you wake up and you hear them tweeting outside, sometimes the crows get annoying, but the birds have a melody that is soothing. And I used to wake up, they would be downstairs. I had a 2-story house, and I could hear them chirping and talking to each other because Rainbow had a girlfriend named Starlight, and they were together for quite some time. But you have an interesting story about the crows. Would you mind repeating the language of the crows and the dance that you've explained to me? Because I remember parts of it, but you seem to know.
How I became really familiar with it was through Shannon, who was partial American Indian. And we had at our big house, we had a lot of crows because we had a lot of nut. We had a pecan tree and also a walnut tree, and they love nuts. And I'd always been kind of intimidated by them, probably from the poem The Raven. I always thought that they were kind of big and scary and maybe mean, but I got to, like, I'd say maybe there were 10 or 11 of them that were around the end of my block. And when the walnuts used to come out, they would take a walnut in their talons, drop it in the street, and wait for somebody to run over it so they could get the nuts out of it. Because the walnut shell was so
but they're smart enough to do that.
I was impressed. And this one crow would bring shiny things like tinsel off of somebody's Christmas tree that was in the driveway or something. And they'd have this little tile in the backyard. It was very strange. So when I started investigating them, and they really did fascinate me, they are referred to as a murder of crows. That's what a large flock of crows is called, as a murder, which I thought was very peculiar. And so there was, we had a big dog at that time, and there was like something fluttering in the backyard. I had a lot of property, and I went back there, and it was a crow that I couldn't tell what was the matter with it. And so I called Shannon, who would pick up anything, dead or alive, and it freaked me out. And so she came over and picked it up, and she said, and she spoke Navajo and some Navajo prayer and put it back down. And she said, it's time for it to go. So we went, and those were the days when we smoked, and sat on the patio and watched it. And all of a sudden, all of these crows, and I mean maybe 25, and it was like scary.
Like the whole community came.
It was black, and it all landed around these crows, and they were hopping around this crow that was dying. And it went on a long time. I mean, maybe 45 minutes, an hour.
It's like their own ritual to send off one of their own, right? But the one crow knew, and it sent a signal or a sound or a call for the rest of them, and they
had this scream that it wasn't really like a bloody scream. It's a crow scream. I don't know, but it wasn't a chirp. And they would all take turns doing it for about 2 or 3 minutes, 2 or 3 seconds.
Each bird would go through
Each bird, and it was like sending it off.
Wow.
And Shannon was very earthy and very organic.
People was a friend of ours in the program that Candy had sponsored. She was a beautiful girl. She died in a plane crash.
Yes, she did. And so when the bird died, they all came really close to it and kind of almost looked like a black umbrella. around it and stayed for a couple of seconds. And I mean, all together, all these birds got up and flew away and left that bird. And and this is, I'm just speaking from a Native American thing, not my own. But so Shannon went over and broke its wings off. And because with crows, for them to have the spirit of the land, they can't just disintegrate. You know, they don't just, because they are not ever picked apart by other birds. Like if a eagle landed in my backyard,
Yeah, they would eat it.
They wouldn't touch it. So, and she broke.
I thought that they do.
So perfectly, there wasn't an ounce of blood. There wasn't even a crack. And these were big black wings. And she kept them, I think it was like 3 or 4 months, so the bird spirit could fly away. And she of course buried it. And every once in a while, these birds would come back and hop on where this bird was buried. It was like, to me, because I'm loved all the American Indian traditions, and
the rituals are beautiful. The rituals are beautiful and very spiritual.
Shannon, I mean, we had a Navajo chief come to Shannon's funeral in Lori's backyard to give her the wings to peace, and because we never had a body, she went in the ocean, you know, and she jokingly always said, if something happens to me, hang me upside down in the forest or feed me to the fish. And in this plane crash, there were 4 people and they found everybody's body but hers. And I always jokingly said, somebody's going to go fishing and catch this fish and have about 8 turquoise rings. Because, you know, she wore so much turquoise. Yeah. But it was comfort for me to know that she had lasted and was where she wanted to be. She didn't want to be buried in the ground or anything, and I wasn't going to hang her upside down in the But you know, it's very interesting that she was so ritualistic as far as the freedom of spirit. And it was interesting from where she came from. Her dad was Navajo, and I think her mom might have been Mexican. I can't remember, but God, she was so stunningly beautiful. And she was escaping at the time Scientology and had to change.
I didn't know that part. I don't remember.
Oh, she was a high up in it. High. She did a lot of the judging and the meters and all that stuff. So when she left, she took her son and escaped, is the truth. And they looked for her for a long time. And we thought that there were spies coming into 12-step meetings and stuff. And, you know, as it would be. But during all of this, the reason that she left that, I guess I could say, cult, is because she wasn't allowed to have her beliefs that were so strong within her as far as the Navajo traditions. And it was all or nothing. And that's why she left. But she was
lucky she got out. She's lucky she got out.
Oh, yeah. But her sister and her husband were still in it. So maybe the good riddance. I don't know. But she had a lot of information that she shouldn't have had. That she never shared, of course. But you know, it was a tragedy when she died. Finally found love, and we dedicated the Monday night meeting to her for 21 years. And yeah, and I mean, by the time the women's meeting was over, nobody but 3 of us even knew who she was.
Right.
They go, who's Shannon? You know?
Yeah, we sometimes have to explain who it was.
Well, by tradition, you're not supposed to name meeting after anybody other than Bill and Bob. So we were kind of breaking a little tradition, but we didn't care.
Not really, because it wasn't called the Shannon meeting. It was dedicated to.
No, it was called the Landale meeting, which was
Oh, well, that's true. But
okay.
yeah.
Ladies of Landale wasn't supposed to be that either. But anyway, that's another story. But she was a level of spirituality I don't think I've ever seen. But it was also traditional, you know. It wasn't just a God of your understanding. She certainly had, you know, the totem. She had her spirit animal and all the rest of it. And she represented it so beautifully that it made a lot of other people stop, you know. Her spirituality just reeked from her. So anyway, enough of that. But I think what I did see from her is the one day at a time was that it was very, very easy for her to live one day at a time, because I think she had been in such fear from where she came from that you never were able to just be in the present, you know. You had so many rules and regulations and all that you couldn't be present in your own life. You had to be present in their life. And so when she got that relief, it was stunning that I really saw somebody apply this to themselves, you know. So that's that. I was going to ask you something.
About one day at a time with program or ritual or spirituality?
No, it just went right out of my mind because I'm so old.
Oh, it's not that. It's just, I think we're overwhelmed. I go through that all the time. Like, what was I just saying? But that's what happens. If you're listening, I'm Dr. Linda Selvin, and that's Candy Finnegan, and we are two women in recovery. We've both got, Candy's turning 38 years in about a week and a half. She'll have her 38-year chip coming soon. And I think you're going out of town with your daughter to celebrate your natal birthday plus your.
You know what? We'll see.
Yeah, well, you're still on the fence.
I love spending time with her, and but I've got some other commitments that I feel are kind of. She wants to, of course, do it for me, and because we've always wanted to go to Victoria together. It's a beautiful place, Victoria, Canada, and it's darling little village, and I just have so many other commitments I feel like I need to make with my son moving, and you know, at this point, like we were talking about, I went to a restaurant the other night with two women that invited me to go to dinner, and I went to dinner, and we used to get this number one, and it was an enchilada and a taco and blah blah blah. And
were you at Casa?
No, we were at El Cabo. And when the bill came, it was $72.50.
Yeah, it's gone up. Tacos and enchiladas.
But I mean, it was enchiladas, one taco, and a Diet Coke. That's all we had. And then at the last, we ordered a small guacamole, which, by the way, was $14.
Oh my God.
And when that bill came, because I used to feed both my kids, myself, and, you know, we'd go out, and the whole bill wouldn't even be $50.
No.
There'd be like 6 of us.
Everything's
I was so stunned. I mean, I really was.
It's hard. Look at some of the sushi places we go to where a year or two ago we'd split a bill for $30 each, and now we're spending $70 each or something. It's just going up and up. That's inflation everywhere, whether it's food, the market, the gas, the rent, the mortgages, property values. Some of my friends just left LA who used to live down the street from you and me, and they moved to Vegas so they can cut everything in half, and they're loving it. They've been there since the beginning of the month. And I spoke to them yesterday. One of their cats just had to be put down. When they were on a road trip with the family years ago, they were coming in from Oklahoma, and they found a stray cat in Arizona, and they adopted this cat. Well, it died yesterday, and they posted, the daughter and the John and his wife posted the pictures of the cat, and I posted the picture. I had this must have been a 40-pound cat. I forget the name of it, but it was so sad because I love animals. But just to see that this one now has crossed over the Rainbow Bridge, it's always changed and changed. That cat made it from Arizona to California for several years. They moved to Vegas and it got sick and died. So I think it wanted to see the move, let them know they're back in the desert and he's free to go. That's the life cycle of life and death. And it's hard because we're also empathic and so empathetic that these little nuances, even like with the crow and Shannon with the wings and the ritual, you start to feel all this. But I've always remembered you telling me that story about the dance, the murder of the crows, but I could never remember how to formulate it in my mind. Now I understand.
Well, and I learned, as I said, they were horribly, when you've got a whole bunch of them squawking.
That's loud. Yeah.
Very intimidating. And I don't remember how it came up, but I said, oh my God, those things are so loud. And it was so funny because Shannon said, listen to their voice. And I didn't have that gift. It was squawking to me, sorry. And she said, they're communicating. And
oh, of course.
I never had that tone affect that she did, where she could hear the different tones and even in some senses almost try to communicate with them on a spiritual level. But, I stopped criticizing them. I'll tell you what.
No, all the living beings have something. Like somebody posted whales. I think there were 12 or 13 whales in the ocean going in a circle, but you can hear all of them singing and making sounds. And it's very melodic and very
very melodic,
but gorgeous. Yesterday, Rebel helped me rescue some of the show because I couldn't think of other topics when there were some glitches, and we talked about the cicadas. So, Rebel, why don't you come in because there's going to be a big cicada.
Oh yeah, it's Michigan. It's going to cover Michigan.
Yeah, it's supposed to be this huge infestation. I found a picture of it yesterday, and I sent it to you just to validate that I saw it, Rebel. But it was one weird attack that Rebel can share again on today's show because
I think it's fascinating.
It's horrible. Horrible, those things. I actually think I had a bad dream about those things last night.
They're so ugly. They're big flies or big, I don't know, with the wings. Now
they've got such hard shells.
Those things when they leave their shells, just the remnants of them being anywhere, it's horrible. And it's oh no.
They don't have an what's it called?
Infestation.
They don't have it out in California. The place that it's going to be hit the worst, they said, was Michigan with 13 million of them.
Oh,
they can keep them.
It's like all of a sudden they are everywhere. It's scary.
Do we know when this is supposed to hit? It's supposed to be May or June?
Oh, it's coming.
I think that was one of the predictions, ironic as it seems, when they had a whole bunch of predictions come out when the eclipse was coming this past, on the 8th?
A week and a half ago, yeah.
So one of them was there was going to be an infestation of locusts. Well, come to find out, locusts and cicada are the same thing.
Absolutely.
So they're just not happening in the time that it didn't happen on the 8th, but it's happening all around the 8th. You have to start to wonder sometimes that they're putting things out there. They're telling us they can't necessarily get their timing right, but there was supposed to be an infestation of locusts. There was supposed to be a release of some aerosol something.
Yeah, well, there was news, and I don't remember the type of chemical that they were doing, but NASA was supposed to have shot some planes or missiles up into the atmosphere during the eclipse. But some people were able to see a plane flying through the mist of the clouds, and as it was getting dark, they could see a plane. Now, whether that was NASA or it was some other airline, I have no idea. Whether they seeded it, I don't know. The magnificence of it, where the moon, went between the Earth and the sun, was great. And it won't really happen again till 2044 if we're still here, or I won't be here, but you never know. Gosh, I'd be 90
Well, this says trillions of evolution's bizarro wonders. Red-eyed periodical cicadas that have pumped in their heads and jet like muscles in there are about to emerge in numbers not seen in decades and possibly centuries.
Oh my God, this is going to be.
Well, you know, because a locust is also a grasshopper. I mean, that's what they were called when I grew up. And so we'll have to see about when does it say it's coming with the
Well,
collective.
you can hear Rebel's experience when they hit her. Talk about it. I mean, it's disgusting, but it happened to Rebel how many years ago in Tennessee?
Oh, it was a few years back, and it was the biggest one in that time. I'm gonna say maybe 12 years ago. We were in the stadium, and it was a beautiful festival. Soon as the darkness came, the lights in the stadium went on, and it's like these things started swarming, and it looked like tornadoes or little funnels or arrows,
right.
and they dive from you. They get right in your face, and they try to go up your nose and in your ears. I'm like, oh
God, no.
It was horrible. It was literally horrible. I'm like, what in the world? I've never been that close to a live one before. I've seen dead shells. My brother used to chase me down the street with them, but it's like, what is this thing? But they were tiny, so they must have like just hatched or something.
It said it's called the alien species because it lives underground, under our feet for years and years, and all of a sudden they all come out at the same time.
Little bitty alien horrible things.
They leave their shells, and so when you walk on it, it sounds like you're walking on potato chips.
Yep, they crunch and then they turn to dust.
Yeah.
It's just a disgusting thing. If you saw the pictures, you know what I'm talking about. Those things, those little brown shells, it's just like death warmed over. But a life came out of that, and that life is a horrible, menacing thing.
And they have no smell. But
maybe that's why they attack people, because they just dive down your face.
That the cicada cousins that come out every 17 years. That's kind of a long time to be hiding.
Well, they had gone away for like 24 years. That time they came out in Tennessee, they were not extinct, but they were underground.
Were they just living and dying underground, or did they just go extinct?
No, they all come out to dead. There are 15 different kinds of them, and they're either on a 13 or 17-year cycle.
Wow. That's pretty.
But they're just in the east part of the United States. Isn't that weird?
It is terrible. It is absolutely terrible. They can keep them. I literally left Tennessee because of that. It's like, oh no, I'm not playing this game.
Average, just listen to this: 1 million of them per acre, over 100 million of acres across 16 states.
That's a lot of cicadas. That's a lot of noise, a lot of fear, a lot of nuisance.
The noise, isn't it deafening?
Have you ever seen them when you were in Kansas? Did they have them?
Oh, no, but I saw them in Connecticut.
Oh, great.
But the birds have a feast.
We just get all the crows to go over to where they're coming out. The crows can eat them.
Eat all the cicadas.
Hey, it's Thanksgiving. Yeah. And they're not toxic to animal, and they don't sting or bite your pets. The only thing
that's nice to know. They're animal friendly.
They're not people friendly.
Right. They're just
they like to crash into you.
That's exactly what Rebel said yesterday on the show, how they just went right into her face and smacked her.
And they potent little things. They fly really quick and they smack you with it. It's like, what the world? And no, get off me.
They have transparent wings. You know, I mean, like it's like a dragonfly wing. And
but they're mean.
They look for vegetation in mature trees where they can mate and lay eggs, and then they go underground to feast on the roots, but they do no biological damage.
Maybe not to trees, but they do to people.
Oh yeah, they do.
Windshields, beware.
Oh God.
Oh, I can
Yeah.
only imagine you're driving into a swarm and you can't see because everything's black with dead cicadas' wings all over you.
If,
Oh my
if you
God.
get a whole acre of them together, it sounds like a jet airplane.
That's what she said. Oh God. Can you imagine? No, I can't imagine. I am not in that part of the world. I have no desire really to go travel over there. I'd rather go back to Alaska in the snow where there's nothing before I'd go into a city that has cicadas all over the place.
Yeah, I
Terrible.
don't keep track of them, but it's this year sometime. And they thought it was going to be, you're right. They thought it was going to be around the eclipse, but it didn't happen. So I guess that one day you just wake up and all hell breaks loose.
We'll see. We'll see. This is Dr. Linda Selvin. That's Candy Finnegan. We got our engineer Rebel in the studio back in Louisiana, and we're
One
talking
day
about
at a time.
yeah, this is really about one day at a time, about when the cicadas are going to hit, but it's one day at a time about your sobriety, one day at a time in your relationships, one day at a time with your schooling, one day at a time with your shows, one day at a time with whatever you're going through. We got to be patient with ourselves. We all want it yesterday. We all want it now. We don't understand them. When we get what we think we want, it doesn't feel right. And I posted something about a quote from Paul McCartney the other day on Facebook. And he went through a difficult time trying to understand what happiness is. He wrote, he stated
About
that
what happened, what?
he talked about he went through a difficult time trying to figure out what happiness meant to him.
Oh yeah.
He had all the fame, the fortune, the money, the family, but he was lacking something internally. You know, it's not, he said, it's not all bad out there. I'm paraphrasing, but he went through a difficult time trying to understand happiness. And happiness, again, is an inside job. No matter what you have on the outside, you can still feel depressed, depleted, not fulfilled, not enough. There's never enough. There's just never enough. Some of us have like a deep vacuous hole that never gets filled up. And that's where we fill up with the drugs, the alcohol, the sex, the love, the shopping, the gambling, the food or whatever, because there's this vacuum, there's a space. And that's where you, like today, I did some prayers. Like, I got to fill this up. I haven't been feeling well for a week. And I don't know exactly what I'm being hit with or by or what's happening emotionally, but it'll pass. And it's not like I've never felt it before, but when that little dark hole comes in and then I keep seeing outside interferences like the Facebook thing or different legal issues coming my way, it's hard. Life is hard. You got to always make a decision. And sometimes not making a decision is the best decision at that moment, one day at a time. I've got 2 or 3 people asking me to invest here or purchase this or sign up there. And I'm not ready to make a commitment to anything at this point, especially when I am not sure about the outcome. I would rather just say, I don't know yet. I don't know. And I've learned to not just jump in and then find that there's no water in the pool. But it was interesting that Paul McCartney, using his status to
he just did an interview with somebody and they talked about growing old. And he said, I cannot accept that I am old, because he's 80. And he said, he said, when we would sit around, the Beatles, and talk about growing old, 64 was like, yeah. And he said, so we wrote when I'm 64, we thought that was the end of the world. And think about that, I'm almost 20 years older than that. And I can't remember, it was some other big rock guy that they did this talk on growing old. And, you know, your voices get bad and your fingers aren't as limber and
your skin changes, your hair changes.
But, you know, it's like he was having so much plastic surgery. I mean, Botox and all that. And he finally just gave it up, let his hair go gray.
Yep.
And he said, because I've got to do this gracefully.
I want to read what I posted, and because he said there was a period in my life. This is Paul McCartney, people, the Beatles, and some people don't know what was a Beatle.
Oh, got it. I hope they do.
We grew up with the Beatles. There was a period in my life when I just felt down and somewhat depressed, and this was years and years ago. There wasn't really a reason that I felt that way. I was like, I got everything I wanted, money, fame, friends, and all, but still I feel like I got nothing. Those were dark times and nobody knew. I started searching for reasons to be happy, but I found none. I searched for days and maybe weeks. I don't exactly remember, but now I do remember when in that period a voice spoke in my head. It said, you don't need a reason to be happy. And that changed my perspective of life until now. You don't really need a reason to be happy. Stop craving for things that will give you happiness because it's free. I learned that lesson that I'm lucky, and I didn't learn it the hard way. Stay safe, y'all. And yes, he is aging gracefully because he's no longer the brunette. And yes,
he'll be 81 in June.
yeah, it's hard to roll. Yeah, I was 10 when they hit Ed Sullivan's show, and now I'm 70, so it's 60 years.
Yeah, and he's still going on tour. He's still puts on an incredible show. Yep.
So happiness is a day at a time. Cicadas are a day at a time. Sobriety is
every 13 years at a time.
Love is a day at a time. You know, it's hard because it looks like they have it together. They've got the beautiful home. I just looked up an old boyfriend of mine from
of course you did.
Yeah, it was on my mind today when I was thinking about radio, and he's married, and he was always going to be the bachelor. He'd never get married. And of course, after his parents died and left him $80 million, he bought a beautiful home in the desert and got married. But, you know, you go through people, places, and things a day at a time for whatever reason at that time, and you learn or you let go or you evolve, and new things happen a day at a time. Our life is a day at a time. We don't know when it ends. We don't know how it's going to end usually. But in the middle between birth and death, you have choices and we have decisions. And some of our choices and decisions aren't always in our best interest, or we fall down and we have to get back up. But as Candy and I know from the 12 Steps of Recovery, there's another solution to help you feel better, get a handle on things where it used to be slippery, or you couldn't function financially, or you couldn't be self-supporting, meaning getting a job and taking care of yourself, or taking a bath and washing your hair, or getting your car washed, or cleaning the house, or whatever. You can get back up out of the little black hole and move forward. And the beautiful thing is that there's fellowship and you're never alone. There's other people going through the same journey. And that's why the fellowship around the world is so important, that you're not alone, even though you think you're alone. You're
very,
not alone.
very true.
You know, we're not alone. So we got about 3 minutes left in the show today. What do you want to close with, Candy?
Well,
excuse me.
If you're struggling, if you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, don't worry about it. Just stay in today. It's like, I remember this saying that, and I always loved it. Somebody's going to have a good day. It might as well be me. And, you can start your day over anytime. It doesn't have to be at 7:15 or at 10:20. And if you're having a bad day, just sit quietly for a while and start your day over, because we all deserve to be happy. And if you can do that one day at a time, you've accomplished a lot. Very true.
And you've been doing it a day at a time, like I have for many, many years. And it can give somebody who doesn't even have one day hope that we all started one day a long time ago. We decided to take that first step. And that's what we're here for, people. You need help taking that first step. We offer our hands to you, and you can contact us at the information that'll be on the screen momentarily. I'm going to close the show out, Rebel, since we did a minute or two over yesterday. So let's close out. We'll be back next Wednesday doing another Recovery Wednesday. If you want to contact me or Candy, we'd love to hear from you. Take care and have a good week, everybody. Day at a time. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us. We hope you enjoyed Recovery Wednesday. You can reach Dr. Linda at 888-509-1077 or at lindasalvin.com, and Candy Finnegan at candyfinnegan@aol.com. Need a breakthrough of your own? Ready for answers or insights nobody else has? Reserve your own one-on-one in-person chat. Dr. Linda isn't just for other people. Dr. Linda gets results for you. And it's easy. Contact details are on screen now. Just click on lindasalvin.com or call toll-free 888-509-1077. That's lindasalvin.com or toll-free at 888-509-1077.